What is up, guys? Welcome to week 11 for the DFS Power walkthrough. This week is a little different. It is just going to be me and Mike Taglieri, or as Scott would have called him in the olden days, probably Mike Taglieri. So, hey, Mike, what's up, man?
I love that you brought that back up. Scott and I, it was funny. We were talking about before we came back on. The last time I podcasted with Scott, it was back in the Fan Vice days. Him and I had a show that we did Sunday mornings, and Scott would always like show up hungover. And he lives up to he definitely lives up to all the talk. Like his there is no acting with Barrett. That's who Scott is, and you got to love him for it.
Yeah. And I mean, he was like podcasting from like his flipped over trash can and made it difficult for him to keep his head in the Fan Vice box.
Yeah, dude. Speaking of which, how's your chair doing? Like I heard you said you ordered that new chair. How you like it?
It's been good, man. So like I had a Sealy chair for like years, and then the wheel broke, so I was like leaning for the last month, and I couldn't keep doing it. But yeah, it's been good.
Dude,
I was actually surprised.
There's nothing like a good chair. They're expensive if you want to get a good one, but there's nothing like a good chair because if you sit in it all day, it's definitely necessary.
Yeah, and after I got it and I sat in, I was like, oh, this is nice. And I used to be really nerdy and into Counter-Strike and stuff, and I went to like one LAN tournament and they had all DX Racer chairs, and I honestly didn't really remember how it had even felt, but I knew it was the thing.
Yeah.
So, but I also went on their website and applied to try and get a sponsorship, but no word.
No, that's cool, man. Like it's funny. I hear about Counter-Strike. I used to be a gamer myself. I play like Hearthstone and stuff now, like strategy card games, just because I don't know. It keeps my mind active. Not in football season, obviously, because I don't have time to do jack shit. Outside of football stuff and take care of my 10-month-old. But yeah, outside of that, man, I'm ready to talk to football. The week got off to a great start. Like, did you play a lot of prime time? I barely ever play primetime like a ton. I'll play a couple lineups, but I really, really wanted to have a ton of Ben, Antonio Brown, and I also had some Mariota. That didn't really pan out as well, but I'll take it. I'll take the good with the bad.
Yeah, man, you'll have to start playing primetime. We and everyone who's been in the Power Chat are just like huge into the primetime slates. They're just too much fun. I mean, obviously, Cam did outscore Ben. Barely. But yeah, Brown, dude. I mean, playing the I played Thursday, Monday lineups just to play Brown and Ben. So far, good start.
Yeah, fortunately, I didn't have any Bell in those games. People continue to underestimate the Titans' run defense, like every single week for whatever reason. I remember everybody wanted to play Alex Collins against them, and I'm like, no, don't do that. Like Buck Allen's a better play. But they continue to do it, so don't take too much away from that Bell performance. There's people jumping off the ledge with Bell already, and I'm like, no, don't do that. He hasn't. I'm not going to sit here and say he's been great this year because he hasn't. The offensive line hasn't really blocked the way that they have the last couple of years, where he can kind of dance behind the line of scrimmage. I tell people this all the time. Like Joe Mixon and Le'Veon Bell are similar in that way, where Le'Veon Bell actually has an offensive line that allows him to be patient, and everybody wants to credit Le'Veon Bell for that patience. But if you go to like someone like Amir Abdullah or Joe Mixon who wants to dance behind the line of scrimmage, they're hammered for it because they don't have the offensive line to block for it. You see Joe Mixon getting hit in the backfield like every play. Amir Abdullah, if you've watched Lions games, you know that he's been he can't run behind that offensive line. He needs to get downhill faster, and yeah, but that's why Bell struggled this year. His offensive line just hasn't been as dominant as they were the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's been tough to pay up for him, but it's coming. I mean, the game will be coming.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, let's dive into this slate. As always, I just follow the Vegas Insider website's NFL matchups list just so I can have the Vegas lines in front of me. First game we got is the Lions at the Bears. Probably one of my least favorite games on the slate. Open to 44 total. It's down to 41. Lions are slight favorites. I don't have a ton of interest in this game. I've never been big on, Jordan Howard gets popular off and on every other week. Not a guy that I get real excited about. And then I like Tate, but there are other options in the slot that are cheaper than him that I like more. Is there anyone that really gets you excited in this game?
Nobody that really gets me excited. I say to stay away from Stafford. The divisional games are often like overlooked by people that play DFS. They just don't understand that divisional games, the teams know each other extremely well. Nothing has changed with these coaching staffs, so it's not like Sean McVay came in and changed the entire atmosphere of the Bears team or anything like that. Matt Stafford against the Bears last year threw for just 436 yards, 1 touchdown, and 4 interceptions in the 2 games. And if you recall, that was a Bears defense that was really banged up. I want to say they lost 4 of their front 7 last year by the time that they played the second time. Jordan Howard is very interesting to me because the Lions, ever since they lost Haloti Ngata on the defensive line, it's really affected their run defense. The only player that they actually stopped was Le'Veon Bell, and they kind of they said, Ben, beat us. That's what we're going to force you to do. And they're likely to do the same thing with Jordan Howard. So I'm not necessarily all over him, especially on DraftKings where he's not catching any passes, and that's for a reason. That's by design. He can't catch passes. Golden Tate, I would say to watch. The one thing I would say to watch with him is that the Bears slot cornerback position has kind of like a hidden bevy of riches. Bryce Callahan's been really good, but he actually missed last week, and they don't know if he's going to play this week. Cravon LeBlanc, he stepped in last year and played the slot for them, and he did a pretty good job. I think Marvin Jones's matchup against Kyle Fuller is better. The Bears have been trusting Fuller in one-on-one situations, and Matthew Stafford, whenever he sees Marvin Jones one-on-one, he just throws it up to him. So we saw what Devontae Adams did against Kyle Fuller last week. So I wouldn't run away from Marvin Jones. Tate's not like the worst player or anything like that, but I definitely pay attention to see if Callahan plays because that'd play a factor in it. But yeah, outside of that, I mean, Dontrell Inman, but it's the chance that Darius Slay covers him because he's the only legitimate NFL talent on the Bears wide receiver roster.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are getting excited about Inman, and they say, he saw 8 targets last week. But if you look, I mean, there are three Bears receivers that saw 8, 7, and 8 targets. So I mean, I don't think it's necessarily a guarantee that he's suddenly the favorite for Trubisky, especially for a team that would be happy to throw the ball 6 times.
Well, I mean, they would be happy to do that, but the way that things are working out, it's just not. I think they're taking a lot of heat for how much they've tried to hide Trubisky. It's why they put him in the game if they weren't going to use him. But Inman, because I'm obviously from Chicago, so I get to watch the Bears, and consistently, that sky cam that we had last night for Roethlisberger for Mariota, we were able to see the reason that Ben Roethlisberger is considered a good quarterback. There was anticipation in his throws before Martavis Bryant would get out of his break. You'd see the ball in the air and he turns around, the ball's there. Mariota was waiting for his receivers to almost sit down in their point, and it was just Mariota had a bad game last night. But the thing is with Trubisky, he's actually hitting players in stride, and the Bears receivers, they come out of a break and they're not looking for the ball, and it's to hit him in the shoulders, it's hit him in the head. The Bears receivers have been so bad. Dontrell Inman actually looked like a professional route runner last week. So with Zach Miller out, Zach Miller, when he was playing with Trubisky, he had a 27.3% target share. So that naturally had to go somewhere. People didn't know where it was going to go. Inman, it was still his first game with the team. Josh Bellamy is nothing to worry about. Kendall Wright only plays in 3 wide receiver sets. And the Bears don't do a whole lot of 3 wide receiver sets because they run the ball a ton and they want to get, 2 tight ends on the field. So there's
the big question, would you play Dontrell Inman over Bruce Ellington?
No, I would not. Bruce Ellington is a sneaky play, especially on DraftKings. I know that they said they wanted to get him more work this week, but they've already been giving him work. That's not a secret. And knowing that, Patrick Peterson's going to line up with DeAndre Hopkins, and that the Cardinals, they've allowed some stuff to tight ends this year, but they've been a stingy tight end defense for the last couple years. So I don't know if it's just, it's been bad matchups, whatever the case, but Bruce Ellington's a sneaky play. I just think that Inman's a little too risky for me this week, just because there's a risk that Darius Slay does kind of follow him around.
Right. And it's also one of those, I think every Bears receiver is one Matthew Stafford pick 6 away from just totally being disappeared.
Yeah, that's true. Very true.
But yeah, I mean, I pretty much echo what you're saying. I mean, who knows what they'll do with Slay. But yeah, I mean, I guess if he shadowed anyone, that's probably where it'll be.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. And I mean, I don't think I have interest in either of these defenses. I mean, I get it that, you could go for the sloppy defense angle with divisional games, but probably not going to go there.
Yeah. I'd look somewhere else too.
Yeah. All right. So the next game I think is one that's going to be probably the most or second most popular game on the slate. The Chiefs at the Giants. The total's on its way up. The line is moving towards the Giants. I think it opened a little aggressively towards the Chiefs, but I don't really have a whole lot of faith in the Giants to keep this close. I know Alex Smith is going to be super popular. I think he makes sense if you can afford him in cash games. I think Kareem Hunt is my favorite running back on the slate at the top end. And I don't have as much love for the Giants, but I do love Sterling Shepard as usual here. And then, I mean, obviously, Kelsey is probably the best tight end play on the board. What do you think?
Shepard, I'm a little concerned about. Like Steven Nelson came back, and he's a better slot cornerback than Phillip Gaines was. And I mean, I know he allowed 2 touchdowns to Cole Beasley the other week, but Cole Beasley still finished with under 30 yards receiving, if I'm not mistaken. So that matchup's not great, but at the same time, he's getting 8 to 12 targets in that game. Like, that's a given. They're going to fall behind this game. KC's favored. What did you say, 10.5?
Yeah, it's actually down to 10 now. That's what it was, 10.5 like an hour ago, I think.
Yeah, I think it started at 11. So it has moved down a little bit. So Alex Smith, I definitely like him. It's hard not to like him. If you go back through the Giants, you'd have to go all the way back to week 3. That was the last time that they didn't allow a top 10 quarterback. Like, they've allowed 4 300-yard games in their last 6 games. Alex Smith, coming off the bye, Andy Reid coach teams are 16-2, so they're going to be extremely well prepared. Smith is definitely him and Brady are the 2 cash game quarterbacks I'm playing this week. I think that you do have the cash to spend up at quarterback. I think there's so much value at running back this week that you don't necessarily have to. There's some value at wide receiver as well. But Kareem Hunt, I think that I'm going to end up with him in my cash game lineup because Leonard Fournette is turning out to be a very shaky play. Because like, you have to spend up somewhere, right? Because Mike Evans is the only wide receiver I want to pay up for. And then you look at the running backs and it's like none of them are very attractive except for Kareem Hunt. I mean, the game script's ideal. He's not at home, which kind of stinks, but this is a Giants team that I never buy into this crap, but the Giants have given up on Ben McAdoo. The Giants themselves have given up. The front office has said they're basically going to fire him. It's just they don't do it in season. So he's a walking dead man. There's nothing here. It's just, I think, I don't know. I don't know where you go, like, trying to think of the psyche into a Giants defensive player. It's like, do you guys want jobs next year? Because whoever comes in is going to evaluate what you guys did this year. So I worry about that to an extent, but Kareem Hunt, it's a little bit of a Spencer Ware concern. Like, Johnny, do you remember last year when Spencer Ware started the year like on fire? His first couple weeks were like, he was the RB2, I think, after the first couple weeks. After the first 6 weeks, he started to die down. And then, like, nobody wanted to draft him this offseason. Everybody wanted Kareem Hunt. We've seen something very, very similar with Kareem Hunt. People are concerned about the snap counts. I'm not this week. That had to do with game script concern. There is 0 game script concern here. He should dominate snaps. And I'm with you. I'm starting to lean like he's my number 1 running back play. I don't know if you need to spend up for him, but you have to like him kind of just because he's like the best option at the top of the board.
Yeah, and it's the thing with, like, I'm looking at the last 4. I was looking at the last 4 games that he's played a lot over the last couple of days. And I mean, in the 2 wins, well, they didn't beat Oakland, but they should have. But in the 2 close games and wins, he had 22 and 18 carries. Mm-hmm. And then against Dallas and Pittsburgh, he was, sort of phased out. They don't trust him in pass protection. So when it is, a 2-minute drill, sometimes he comes out, and when they are, trailing by 10, he comes out of the game. But I don't think that happens. I mean, barring something really weird.
I agree. It's hard to envision any scenario where he can't rack up 20 carries in this game. And that's essentially what you want in your cash games. Like, obviously in tournaments, Kareem Hunt's probably going to be, I think he would be highly owned looking at the top of the running back board. Just like there's not many good plays at the top of the board, like Todd Gurley at Minnesota, Fournette at Cleveland. That's looking very shaky. Ingram's probably going to be the most owned with the way things have gone recently. The news that Mike Tolbert is going to be inactive is going to help McCoy. But I mean, there's just nothing, like, there's no play at the top of the running back board that stands out. It's like, oh my God, I have to play this guy. So I dig Hunt. He's a safe play.
And I think over on, if you're looking at like the fan share tags, I think it's him, Kamara, and Gordon are all, and Ingram are all really, really closely lumped together in the tags so far this week. So yeah, I think they're all going to come in close. But I think I think you're right that at least with the public, Ingram probably comes in a little higher because everyone missed last game.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, other than that, I feel like the other thing too, though, is if you believe in the road splits, then this should be a Tyreek Hill week. But I don't really believe it, and I don't want to play Hill over Brandon Cooks, Mike Evans, Mike Thomas. Just can't imagine paying 7,100 for him in a game that they probably aren't throwing much in the second half.
Right. Well, you have to, and if you're envisioning Travis Kelce to have a pretty big game and Kareem Hunt to have a big game, it's like how they have to start thinking about this. Like how much upside can Tyreek Hill actually offer? Now, like the Giants have been burned like the past few games, and Janoris Jenkins, I don't know what happened. Like you go back to Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie getting suspended. In like the game he came back, he played like 13 snaps and allowed like 3 catches for 60 some yards on those 13 snaps. He got benched. And then they obviously suspended Janoris Jenkins. He came back and allowed massive plays. Marquise Goodwin, he was covering there. You saw him try and tackle George Kittle. George Kittle beat him in coverage. A week before that, it was Robert Woods. It was Sammy Watkins. It's like they're allowing constant big plays. They do play a lot of man coverage, and that's really tough to do against someone like Tyreek Hill. So I do think that he's the type of guy where it's like if you're setting multiple tournament lineups, like let's say that you're playing, 10 different lineups, or you're doing the 150 lineups, you definitely want to have some exposure to Tyreek Hill because he gives you that 30-point potential. I don't think he would be in my top 5 plays at the wide receiver position for how much he costs because you're paying for a lot of that production.
Oh yeah. And then, you look at his two big games, like over 100 yards, and they both came in like legitimate back and forth shootouts.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we're gonna have that.
Right? Is it gonna be Davis Webb tearing up the Chiefs secondary?
Oh man, who knows?
We can only dream.
Yeah. Other than that, I still don't have a lot of love for the Chiefs defense. I think there are better options. Because even though the Giants are terrible, it's not like Eli is playing horrendous.
Correct.
So let's move on to the next one. We got the Bucs of the Dolphins. I think this is a really good spot to get back on the Buccaneers side of the ball. Line quickly moved from Miami as a favorite to the Bucs. Obviously everyone saw Miami being atrocious in week 10. And I think Fitzpatrick, Evans, and even Doug Martin are guys to get back on. Maybe Deshaun Jackson, he just hasn't shown all that much of a ceiling, especially with Fitzpatrick. You on that side, and do you like any Dolphins? I struggle to want to use them, but I get it.
Yeah, I think this game has like sneaky shootout potential because we have 2 quarterbacks who simply don't care. And you have 2 defenses that are not very good. So Mike Evans is my favorite wide receiver play outside of Antonio Brown, obviously, who went off. But Mike Evans coming off his suspension. Ryan Fitzpatrick, like, let's think about this for a second. I talked about this on another podcast. And if you go back to 2015, the last time he played really well, he had a healthy Brandon Marshall. He had a healthy Eric Decker. He targeted the crap out of those 2, and they performed every single week. Last year, we obviously seen a different version of that. But when you watch Eric Decker and Brandon Marshall this year, are we that shocked? The 2 look like they're at the end of their careers. Like Eric Decker's not getting it done, but there's a lot of circumstances there. But Brandon Marshall looked like he was done when he took the field for the Giants. So can we put all this blame on Ryan Fitzpatrick? I don't think so. Obviously in Miami, we don't have to worry about the cold or the snow that we do with some of these other teams. Mike Evans should see at least 12 to 14 targets here. And if you watched Monday Night Football, you saw Xavier Howard get repeatedly beat in coverage. He allowed 2 touchdowns. The big thing that people are missing here, the reason I like Evans, and you could even pivot off that and go to Deshaun Jackson, because TJ McDonald, while he is a good free safety, he came over from the Rams this offseason. He served a suspension. He was first eligible last week, so he rejoined the team. He took the field with them, and there was obvious miscommunication. That's not going to fix in 1 week. This is a Dolphins team that's also lost their way. Like they've just been trending in the wrong directions. I want to say that the last in DVOA right now as an entire defense. But so thinking about that and the fact that last week they made Cam Newton look like he was an accurate NFL passer. I have a news for you guys that Cam Newton is not a very good quarterback when it comes to throwing the football. He's a very good quarterback in general and like in terms of his all-around game, but he doesn't throw the football very well. And Devin Funchess was literally the only weapon they had on the field. Like, you don't worry about Ed Dixon. Curtis Samuel got hurt. Russell Shepard, like all these names, like what are we throwing at? And then Devin Funchess goes off for 2 touchdowns and 95 yards. Like, they just don't have the skill players to keep up with Mike Evans, which is why I love him. I think Fitzpatrick's going to target the crap out of him. So I think there's like a 12 to 14 target game coming here, 100 yards, touchdown or 2. Now on the flip side, Devontae Parker's really, really interesting, and the reason I say that is because the Tampa Bay secondary, Vernon Hargraves and Brent Grimes, those 2 guys are 5'9" and 5'10". Like, they're very little cornerbacks. That's a problem for someone like that 6'3", like Devontae Parker, and high points the ball extremely well. If there's one thing that we've seen Parker do, in his time with Cutler, it hasn't been like amazing after the catch skills. It hasn't been like amazing route running. He's Cutler throws the ball up because he can high point it. That's why he called him like an Alshon Jeffrey, but faster. Knowing that this Bucs secondary has really struggled with wide receivers, I want to say that on the year, they've allowed more top 36 performances than any other team in the NFL. I hadn't run last week's stats, which is why I'm not sure if that's, but I know it's like right there. It's close. So Parker's interesting. They did call him out in practice this week too, saying that they don't feel like he has the drive that he did at the beginning of the season. So maybe there's a little bonus there. And honestly, Jarvis Landry can't keep scoring every single game. So, yeah.
Although I will say, I think the Bucs defense is trending up. With they've had a lot of injuries.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely played better last week. I mean, it could have also been that the Jets did not play well,
right?
But I have interest in the Bucs defense against Jay Cutler. I was shocked the Panthers didn't sack him at all. But the meltdown game is fully in play, and I'm not buying this whole thing that Cutler has, turned it around. He's now fully, into this offense, and they're moving forward. But I definitely think Parker's the guy that if a Dolphins wide receiver is gonna score 30 DraftKings points, it's Parker.
Yeah.
So I'm with you there. I think Doug Martin is interesting too. He's super cheap. And I mean, they brought Jonathan Stewart back from the grave last week. So
nobody, I didn't think anybody could do that, but it happened.
I was so shocked. And it was like on like 10 carries. He was just shredding them.
Uh-huh.
And then Cam was running free, and Fitzpatrick is a little bit of an underrated runner. So I did not play Fitzpatrick much last week. I just didn't buy that he was going to be very successful without Mike Evans.
Right.
And I think this is the week to play him. No one's going to use him because he burned everyone.
Agreed. Yep. I think it's a sharp play. But yeah, I'm not going to say it because Fitzpatrick, when he did take over for Jameis the couple weeks that Mike Evans was playing, outside of the Saints, like, don't take too much from the Saints. That's the part where I think people need to let go. There's so many people out there that look at the Saints and the schedule and like, he didn't even do anything against the Saints. Yeah. The Saints are not the team that everybody thought they were. They're not like they're not the team that you're going to go back and forth and score 40 points against anymore. It's just not going to happen. Yeah. So to see Evans struggle there against Marshawn Lattimore wasn't really that big of a surprise. So don't take too much from that. The Dolphins defense, if he can't get it done against the Dolphins defense, I'll be with you. I'll ride with you, and I will say I'm not playing him again this year, but I don't think that happens. I think he's a sneaky play. And like I said, I agree with you in terms of that Cutler is definitely further down the totem pole. He's not someone that you ever want to trust. You never want to put all your trust into Jay. That just doesn't happen. The Bucs haven't really got after the quarterback. That's my only concern. If you can't get pressure on Cutler, he will do well. If you give him time, but you have to pressure him. You have to get him on his back. And the Bucs defense, I don't know what it is. Their front seven, they have suffered a lot of injuries, though. It was a lot of their linebackers that were dealing with injuries. I think their strong safety, TJ Ward, was down for a little bit. So there were definite injuries that were taken into consideration. So it's a good call, though, saying that the Bucs are getting healthy and that they did look better last week.
And they sacked McCown 6 times.
Yeah. And that's the thing is McCown, he had been really reliable. A lot of people were like trusting him in cash games last week because of how reliable he's been. So
it's expensive, but
yeah, I'm with you though on the fact that Cutler is who he is, guys. Like, he's not going to change at this point in his career. So I think with Cutler, I think what more of you're looking at is I think Fitzpatrick's going to hang some points on the Dolphins, and then you're just looking at some garbage time, some passes, and Jarvis Landry's matchup isn't as good. Like Jarvis, I take that back. It depends because in the slot, what they've been doing, they've been using Robert McClain there. But if he's out, which it seems like he might be out for this week, then they would bump Hargraves into the slot, and Hargraves sucks. Like he's awful. So Jarvis Landry, if Robert McClain's out, Jarvis Landry gets a huge bump in production. So that's just a name to watch out for.
As much as you can bump him.
Yeah, he did. Like, I don't know what it is. I said something earlier today. I want to say like 6 of his 9 games this year has been like under 50 yards receiving, but the touchdowns have really brought up his production.
Yeah, he's getting end zone targets, which is just wild. But hey, I'll take it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then I mean, if you want to look at Mike Evans with Fitzpatrick, you should look at that fourth quarter against the Cardinals when Patrick Peterson went out of the game. Just went wild in the fourth quarter. So, yep, give me Evans. He's definitely my top wide receiver at the top of the list. And then the Ravens at the Packers. I do think the Ravens run defense is back. I think you're on board with that too. I'm just not excited about the Green Bay side of this at all. Wide receivers are just they're not going to perform with Hundley. And I'm not buying Williams, even if he's going to get 20 touches, whatever it is,
right, against
Baltimore. I do think I have a little bit of interest in Jeremy Maclin and Mike Wallace. Other than that, I don't really love this game. Where are you at?
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't love this game either. I think it's going to be a lower scoring affair, but Jeremy Maclin's the name that I like. I think Jeremy Maclin is an option for cash games if you're looking for a cheap wide receiver. I want to say he's 4,500 this week.
Sounds about right.
And he's going to match up with Demarius Randall in the slot. And so Demarius Randall has been a perimeter cornerback for his career. They just moved him into the slot 2 weeks ago because they've had injuries. They've cut players that they should have cut. Like the Packers cornerback situation is.
I don't think he even finished the game last week.
He's due to play though, right? Like I haven't heard that he's going to miss.
Yeah, but I'm saying he's been banged up.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing is like it showed in his play too, because he's seen 13 targets in the slot in the last 2 weeks. He's allowed 116 yards and a touchdown on those targets. And it's not like he's played the greatest competition either. It hasn't really been the greatest. The Bears were last week. So, I mean, you look at it, Jeremy Maclin's it's a veteran receiver. He knows to take advantage of these matchups. They talked like his shoulder injury that he's been playing through for a majority of the season. He had a bye week to rest that up a little bit. Even the Ravens, I want to say they tweeted out something today saying that the Ravens game plan is going to be feature Jeremy Maclin a lot more. He's already led the team in targets. Like he's seeing at least 5 targets every single game. And against the Packers, you can't really go wrong. I guess the only thing you have to worry about there, but it shouldn't affect him as much, is that game, isn't there supposed to be snow in Green Bay?
Don't know. I've just been monitoring the Cleveland weather because I want to play Blake Bortles, but don't know. I'll have to look. But yeah, I mean, snow doesn't bother me so much unless it's going to be like massive snow. I also think if it's super cold, it's a little bit of a concern with Flacco, who's been dealing with a back injury all season. But that's Maclin is just about the only play I would really want from that game. I think you could sprinkle in Wallace.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Because Wallace is like if you're setting tons of lineups, but yeah, Maclin is definitely the one I would want if choosing between the two.
Okay. Yeah, actually it looks like sunny, kind of cold, 11 to 15 mile an hour winds. Yeah, okay. I think Macklin's fine.
All right. Yeah. Who the hell was it that I was thinking snow? Is it Cleveland?
Cleveland. Yeah.
Yeah, Leonard Fournette doesn't want to play in the snow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's a weird one. We'll definitely talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay. The next game we got the Rams at the Vikings. It sounds like Gurley is not going to be as popular as I expected. The more I see that he is not popular, the more I want to play him. This is sort of that elite player in a bad matchup, under-owned sort of rule, to play in tournaments type thing. He's like the 7th or 8th most tagged running back on FanShare, 16th most tagged player, and the the sentiment on him is bad. There are, lots of people mentioning to sit him for DFS. I like this game to possibly go over, and it looks like they're getting a lot of money on the under. The line's moving, or the total's moving down. You like this game?
I don't love this game. I don't love to attack this game from a DFS standpoint. I think being in Minnesota changes a lot of things for me. Playing in Minnesota, from what I've heard, the interviews that I've seen, like Minnesota is a really tough place to play. And like if you look at Goff, like through his schedule, he's really taken advantage of the matchups he should have. Like he's taking advantage of those matchups. But if you look at the ones where he's struggled, it's against some of those better defenses. And Everson Griffin, we want to see him back in the field for the Vikings. But by all signs, it seems like he's going to play. Like they should be relatively healthy on the defense. I just feel like this game is going to be too much for the Rams. I mean, they've done an extremely good job, but the Vikings are in like a playoff race right now. It's a must win. Case Keenum is playing with Teddy Bridgewater coming on his back. The way that they match up in the secondary against the Rams, like with Robert Woods, will they have Xavier Rhodes covering him? Will he take away Sammy Watkins? But the pass rush, the safeties in Minnesota are really good. So it's just not going to be as easy as competition that we've seen the last few weeks against the Giants and the Texans, who have just been abysmal through the air. So I don't like this game very much. And if I don't think that they're going to score many points, I don't really want too much exposure to Gurley. I don't know.
I only want him if no one wants him.
Well, he's the thing.
I feel
he should have came with a discount this week. I feel like he should be closer to that 7,500 range, and he's 8,400. Like you're paying for him to have a 20-point game.
I do think though, if they were facing a team that was not the Vikings, he would be over 9K. Because I think DraftKings has done a really good job with their pricing.
They have. This is the first week where I feel like there's so much value at running back.
Yeah, I think it's just because we don't have Brown and Bell.
Mm-hmm.
So on the main slate,
no Zeke. I mean, I know he's suspended, obviously, but he's not there. Dak. There's some like Wentz. There's some heavy hitters who are not on the main slate.
Yeah. I think that's a big part of it. But I mean, the Minnesota side is interesting too. If you do buy the Rams have definitely taken advantage of a soft schedule. I still will stand by Goff luck boxing into a 4-touchdown game against the Giants because he threw it 22 fucking times.
Yeah,
that's just not. Jared Goff is not a quarterback who should score 4 touchdowns on 22 passes.
No.
So yeah, I'm definitely not playing Goff. No idea if Rhodes is going to shadow Woods.
I don't think he's going to be honest. I think he's going to stay on his right side, which means he's going to play against Watkins like 70% of the time. And
even then, like I don't think the Vikings are a defense you're going to just like house these 5-yard passes on, which is a lot of what Woods has been doing. I mean, he's been tons of yards after the catch.
Yep.
Harrison Smith is like no slouch. That's not happening.
He's good. He's very good. And Robert Woods hadn't scored a touchdown before like 2 weeks ago. So, I mean, like, it's not to say that he's like a horrible play like season long, but in DFS, like, I don't know why you want to attack the Vikings defense in Minnesota when Woods is coming off 2 games with 2 touchdowns. His ownership's going to be up. Like, there's a lot of reasons not to play him.
Yeah. And I think you have to have some exposure to the Vikings running game against a Wade Phillips run defense funnel. I mean, just Wade Phillips defenses give up running yards. Tough to pick between the two. McKinnon lost snaps surprisingly last week to Latavius, but I would hope that this is a spot where they lean on McKinnon, but it's tough.
Yeah, there have been 5 teams to run the ball 23 or more times against the Rams, which we fully expect the Vikings to do. The Giants ran for 112 yards against them. The Giants. The Jaguars, 133 and a touchdown. Cowboys, 161 and a touchdown. 49ers, 104, 2 touchdowns. Redskins, 222 yards, 2 touchdowns. So if you run the ball against the Rams, like that's the thing. They've allowed, I want to say, their top 5 in terms of rushing yards allowed against them. It's like almost 1,000 yards on this.
It's high.
Yeah, they're almost 1,000 yards in the season that they've allowed rushing, and that's something. And the reason I say that's something is because you think about the game scripts that teams have had against them. Like there's not a whole lot of reason they should have given up a lot of rushing yards, but they have. I mean, like think about the Eagles. They've been in positive game scripts. They've only allowed like 300 something yards rushing, and everybody's like, well, that's because it's a game script. Well, then why are the Rams allowing almost 1,000 yards on the ground? It's because they're bad against running backs. So I do believe that McKinnon is the one. I think he's going to have lower ownership after last week, after like people are legitimately worried about Latavius Murray, and he's going to steal some goal line work for sure, and he's going to get his fair share of touches, but I think there's enough to go around this week, and McKinnon can get it done in both the passing game and on the ground. So if for some reason the Rams do score points, McKinnon's going to be the one you want anyways. So
yeah, I think in my 150 max, I will certainly have exposure to both, but I will definitely have more. And I really liked McKinnon last week. I thought that in a possible shootout, he would be really involved, and we had a shootout, but I didn't get my involvement. So I'm not going to bury him for burying me last week, but I'm just going to go back to him. I think the price is good, and yeah, it definitely makes sense. And I think they're allowing receptions to running backs as well. I think, but you can't quote me on that one. Yes. So I guess they're 16th in DVOA against running backs in the receiving game. So they're just bad against running backs in general.
mm-hmm.
Tough for me to go back to Diggs and Thielen, though. I mean, I know the Rams have been really tough against the pass, but obviously the strength of schedule has been pretty soft. I don't know. Are you in on those guys? I feel like I'm just going elsewhere.
I would rather be on Diggs, I think, than Thielen this week. And Thielen, because he's going to be owned, like it's the recency bias thing. And not to say that Thielen shouldn't be high owned, but I think he has the toughest matchup here. Nickel Roby Coleman. So I'm not going to sit here and say that he's really good, because last year he got benched on the Bills. But he started the year as the best cornerback in football. I want to say he won player of the month to start the season. I can't remember. That's awesome. What it was. But he was really good. So the talent's there. He has talent. It's there. It's whether or not it shows up. And he's only allowed 9.7 yards per reception in coverage this year. He has not allowed a touchdown. So again, the schedule hasn't been the greatest, but I do think that this is one for Diggs, because he's going to see Trumaine Johnson in coverage a lot. And Trumaine Johnson is a solid NFL cornerback, but he's a bigger one. He's like a physical one. He's the one you want to go against those bigger wide receivers. Stephon Diggs is not that. Stephon Diggs is a technician. He will beat you. Try and press cover him. It won't end well for you. So, but that's why I think Diggs is the one I'd prefer to own. And I mean, I don't know what his ownership's going to look like on this slate. There's so many different ways that you can go on this slate. It's just, you're not going to see players too highly owned. Antonio Brown last night was 20%. I thought he was going to be higher than that.
Yeah.
But he was 20% in a lot of things.
Diggs is the 62nd most tagged player on Fanshare. So I don't think people are going to play him. I think people are going to play Thielen. I don't know why Thielen was not owned last week. He was my third or fourth most favorite play. He was
so good against the Redskins. Are so bad in the slot. They can't cover it. Kendall Fuller is just not very good.
It was amazing. I said he was one of 6 wide receivers that I would play in cash, and he was 4 or 5% owned. I don't know,
because he's white, man. People don't want to play the white receiver.
I guess, and he's been better with Diggs on the field. But I agree. I'm not paying wide receiver 3 price for Adam Thielen. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, I'm with you there. That's why I'm not on Thielen. And yes, he will be higher owned than Stephon Diggs. We know that.
Yeah. Yep. All right. I'll move on to the next one. I don't think there's a whole lot to talk about in this one. Cardinals at the Texans. I am on the Cardinals defense. Bruce Ellington. And I think Gabbert and Fitzgerald are in play. Other than that, I don't really want anyone in this game. Do you like anybody else?
Nope. There's some people out there that are saying that Hopkins is actually a sharp play because they dropped his price so much. Yeah, they dropped his price so much, and they're doing it to bait you. And I'm not paying it. I know he's going to get targeted, but you just don't do that against Patrick Peterson. And honestly, Hopkins, the last few weeks, if you watch those games, it's our job to watch those games and have our takeaways. My takeaways from those games are that DeAndre Hopkins legitimately shouldn't have even had the totals that he has. He's had to make circus catches over and over and over again with Tom Savage. And knowing
he's not a circus catch player.
It's ridiculous. His body control is ridiculous. DeAndre Hopkins, his ability to toe tap and all that, he's really good. But the thing is against Patrick
Peterson, I should say he's not a yards after catch circus.
Oh no, he's definitely not.
He's had those.
Yes, he's definitely not that guy. He's I actually like 2 years ago he was the worst in the league when it came to yards after the reception. So he's definitely
Right.
not. Bruce Ellington is interesting because um, the slot receivers that have played against the Cardinals in the last month and a half. Doug Baldwin, 5 catches for 95 yards. Cooper Kupp, 51 yards and a touchdown. Adam Humphries, 6 catches, 51 yards. Nelson Aguilar, 93 yards and a touchdown. So they've struggled against slot receivers. Ellington should see plenty of targets. Now, I
He's
just
been
don't
bad.
know. I don't know how this game is going to go. Like, is it going to be like one of those boring games where it's like we blink and it's halftime already because it's just one of those games where those games that we want to last a long time and they never
Oh
do.
man, yeah. I think there's
And
going to be penalties and grossness.
we're going to be forced to like 3.5 hours of Gabbert.
Yeah, both teams are going to throw a pick six, and then they're going to think like they're winning and just do nothing.
CJ Fedorowicz is a good play.
Yes, I was just gonna say I missed that. Yeah, I think Ellington and Fedorowicz should both see like 6+ targets.
Yeah.
And Fedorowicz is super cheap, and pretty much if your guy gets matched up against Tyrann Mathieu, he's probably gonna win. And I think those are the two guys that they're gonna see him, especially tight ends against Mathieu. If Fedorowicz gets snaps against Mathieu, which for the most part tight ends are seeing some of him, they're destroying him.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and like if you go, Ellington actually has 17 targets over the last 2 weeks. Like I know he scored a touchdown. He hasn't done much outside of that touchdown, but at the same time, like if you're looking for like that dirt cheap option, I'm assuming that there's going to be some sharps on him and that you're going to see his ownership higher than what we would like it to be. But it's definitely not a bad play. I mean, if you're looking for like a really cheap, I have a better one. I have a better cheap play at wide receiver though. That I'm sure we'll get to his game as we go.
Is it going to be in the Browns game?
No, not the Browns game.
Okay.
Oh, you're looking at Keelan Cole?
Yeah. So let's just move on to the Browns game. I want to play Blake Bortles so much because there is a Blake Bortles game every year, maybe 2 Blake Bortles games every year, and when you get them, they are huge. I mean, the guy has like 30-40 DraftKings point upside when he does it. I mean, when he is like out there cooking, he is just doing it. It just rarely ever happens, but it happens.
It does happen.
And this is a Browns team that's just like allowing touchdowns like candy. People point to, they're not allowing 300-yard games, and like that's fine. I don't care if Bortles throw. I mean, I would love for him to throw for 300 yards and get the bonus, but I don't care if he throws for 300 yards. He's so cheap. If he runs for 30, throws 2 touchdowns, and has 225 yards passing, he like smashes. And I think he can do that against the Browns, except for the weather. I don't know. What are you doing with this game with the weather? And then let's talk Leonard Fournette a little bit too.
Yeah, so the weather obviously is a concern. Bortles is like when you watched that game last week with the Jaguars, it kind of felt like 2015 all over again. Like I was like, what the hell am I watching? It's Blake Bortles again throwing the ball 51 damn times. Like it's annoying. You don't want to see that. And knowing Allen Hurns is going to miss the game and Keelan Cole is going to play the slot. Here's my concern. Brian Body Calhoun has been better than people think against the slot this year. He's been covering the slot, and then they got Jason McCourty back from injury last week. He did a good job against Marvin Jones. So let's pretend that Brian Body Calhoun he takes away Cole in the slot, and that Marquise Lee is shut down by Jason McCourty on the outside. That leaves us with D.D. Westbrook.
You're gonna get to my boy.
Well, D.D. Westbrook,
he's going for 200.
He did say that, and I'm like, this kid's a lunatic. All right, it's his first NFL game. I feel like we have a bit of John Ross here right now, like where it's like there's a legit possibility that
you must not have played enough preseason, man.
I love D.D. Westbrook in the preseason.
He printed money.
Oh, dude, like he was easily the best, and that's the thing. That's what I've talked about him in that. If he had played in one game before this, where at least we've seen him on the field for 20 snaps, I'd feel much better about it. But knowing it's his first NFL game, because in the preseason, and I don't care if it was against second stringers, I don't care. It's still the best in the world trying to fight for these jobs, right? Yeah. He was gaining like 5-10 yard separation. Like it was ridiculous how much room he was getting. So I do like Westbrook, but I don't know how much you can really trust him like in his first NFL game.
If it is announced that he is starting at the 2, because the Jags don't run, they don't run a ton of 3 wide receiver sets. I think they're one of the lower percentage teams. if he's starting over Keelan Cole, I am going to have a lot of him, but I don't think that's going to happen.
No, I think my assumption would be that Cole and Lee are going to be the perimeter wide receivers when they're 2 wide, and then when they go 3 wide, they'll kick Cole into the slot. That's what will likely happen. So, yeah, I mean, Westbrook, he's probably going to play like 20, 25 snaps, and if it's a snowy game, I'm just concerned about it. But as for Leonard Fournette, man, it really sucks because we were talking about it with Kareem Hunt and like Todd Gurley. It's like we're going to spend our cash somewhere, right? So where are we going to spend it in our cash games? Like, do we want to pay up? Like the Browns have been good against the run, but what I can talk about there is that because I'm glad the news came out about Fournette because I had him ready to go in my cash game article tomorrow. I was going to play him in cash, but because if you look at the opponents that the Browns have played, it's been abysmal. Like their schedule, and you can see why they've been good against the run. But Leonard Fournette saying he doesn't like to get hit in the cold. He doesn't want to play in the cold. And now he missed practice because of his ankle. It makes more sense why he played less snaps in the second half last week because he apparently re-injured the ankle in that game. So there's all sorts of red flags around Fournette. So outside of tournament, and even in tournaments, it's getting really dicey because, I mean, the Browns aren't they're not a walk-on matchup, like where everybody dominates them. So that's the concern. With him. So I'm not, I don't know.
I think I think you have to pay attention to how many running backs they have active. If they have 4 again, no Fournette for me. I do think if you look at his snaps from the Chargers game, he played sort of like his
in line with the season average,
quote unquote normal snaps. But if you look at like how often he was on the field when it was close, it wasn't quite normal. And he didn't touch the ball as much as he normally touched the ball when he was on the field.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like there's something weird going on with Fournette, whether it's them limiting him for the playoff push, whether he is in a doghouse for whatever with this team photo. There is enough weirdness that I can just move on from him. I think.
I kind of agree with you. It would really suck to sit him, know that he's active, and then he goes for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. But with all these red flags, and I think you're right. I think they are going to have all 4 running backs active for the game, regardless, knowing the conditions that they're supposed to be on the field. I could just see this. I mean, there's no chance that the Browns put up points in the Jacksonville defense. That's just not going to happen. So this should be a run heavy script. That's what I was chasing. Like it made all sorts of sense to play him in cash because he was going to get 20 carries. You knew that, and the talent's there.
And when they're winning, he still gets targets.
Right. He's lost some of them since Yeldon has been active, which really sucks. But at the same time, last week, don't take too much from it. That was the first week that he didn't finish as a top 15 PPR running back all season.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if 3 running backs are active, then I will have him in tournaments. If 4, I probably won't. And then if I want to know what that wind is Sunday morning. If it is going to be less than 20 miles an hour, I'm going to have a lot of Blake Bortles. If it's over 20 miles an hour, I probably won't.
Ride the Bortles Express, man. 28 of the last 35 games, the Browns have allowed multiple passing touchdowns.
Yep. And I think Bortles has thrown a touchdown pass maybe every game but one this year.
All but one, I think, but he's only thrown more than 1 touchdown one time, and that was in London.
Yeah, I mean it's Bortles, but
he hasn't run for a touchdown. We know he can do that too.
But I mean, we've seen like against Indy. I mean, he was just like demoralizing them.
Yep.
So it is possible that he can have huge games. He just didn't get the touchdowns against Indy. I played him that week. I played him in cash, but
same here.
I'm waiting for my second chance. I hope it's this week.
Oh no, just pay up and forget about it. But no, wait, we haven't mentioned Mercedes Lewis. I think he's a sharp play. Like I think that Mercedes Lewis is a legit streamer that you can use if like you're trying to be contrarian because everybody and their grandmother is going to pay up at tight end this week.
Yeah, and I mean you're gonna get 5 to 7 targets, especially with Hearns out. There's probably a small boost.
Mm-hmm. And it's the Browns.
And if McCourty shadows Lee, which is possible, McCourty didn't shadow last week. I think that's a product of being
First week back.
Coming off of his injury. He shadowed, the big time guys. I think he definitely shadowed Lee, especially with Hearns out.
Yeah.
Then, we're going to see Mercedes and, see a few more targets if Bortles even recognizes that.
For sure.
Okay. Redskins, Saints. I think this is a better game than people are giving it credit for. I think Jamison Crowder is quite possibly my top wide receiver play on the entire slate. I think I might just lock him into every single lineup that I make across the entire board. You with me?
Oh, that's the slot receiver I was talking about. People are going to be playing Ellington, and Crowder is 4,300. Like, that's stealing money. 24 targets his last 2 games. Kenny Vaccaro is a converted safety playing slot cornerback. And Kenny Vaccaro, by the way, so he was actually the backup slot cornerback to Sterling Moore, who was then cut by the team. Vaccaro got hurt, and he's missed the last 2 practices, so it looks like he's unlikely to play. PJ Williams would come in and cover the slot, which Jamison Crowder is just playing against a third-string cornerback, essentially. Like,
and he's healthy.
Come on. And he looks healthy, too. He actually should have had a touchdown last week, but Cousins threw it too far to the sideline, and the momentum carried him out of bounds, but it should have been a long touchdown. But, yeah, Jamison Crowder, so easy to play on DraftKings.
Oh,
it's just it's free money.
Yeah. No Pryor, no Reed. I mean, I feel like you're locking in like 8 to 12, maybe more targets.
Yep. Play Thompson too.
4,300. Yeah. I think Thompson is definitely in play too. I mean, you're looking at when Kelly's out, he's going to get 10 plus rushing attempts, and obviously he's been a terrible runner this year. But he has it in him to break it. So every single time he gets one of those attempts, it's like it's going for like 2 or 3 yards, or it could go for 40. So you get that additional upside with those additional, 5, 6, 7 carries he's going to get.
Sure.
And people don't give him all that credit. And the Saints are giving up, I think, a ton of production in the screen game to running backs.
Yep. McCaffrey and James White both went for more than 80. Went for 85 and 101 yards receiving.
Yeah. So, and I think he's going sort of unnoticed because everyone wants to play Rex Burkhead, and we'll get there. But I think Thompson's just sort of not getting any mentions at all. I think the price is nice. Mm-hmm. Outside of 3 games, he's hit value on that price tag.
Yeah, he scored at least 15.6 points in 6 of 9 games this year. 3 20-point games. Like, the upside's there. He could score a receiving touchdown here. He could score a rushing touchdown. Samaje Perine is not very good. Like, he looks awful.
It seems like they hate him.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing is, like, considering where they drafted him, you would think they liked him, and like he played over Mixon in college, so it's like you figure this kid's got talent. He looked kind of like a little Michael Turner, and then he comes to the NFL and he just looks like a plotter, man. He looks like a worse version of Sean Green.
Oh, he's been bad. Yeah, and it seems like he's like always coming off the field like complaining of something like injury bothering him. I don't know. I don't like him.
Yeah, no, neither do I. And that's the thing is Thompson, they don't want him to carry the ball 15 times, but they might out of necessity in this game because the Saints are going to score points, whether it be either through the pass or the air or they're on the ground, whatever you want to count it as. Like, the Saints are going to score points in this Redskins defense. They're going to score a lot of points. So the game script's going to favor Thompson and Crowder. And that's why I'm saying, like, both of them like are locked into cash lineups for me.
Yeah. In that weird San Francisco game where it actually stayed close the entire time and Kelly was out, he had 16 carries. So that feels like a similar spot where we can more projectably keep it close.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I'm with you. That's the only, and I think Cousins is in play. I don't love him at his price point. I think I would much rather go to Derek Carr for $300 more on DraftKings. But Cousins certainly has the ceiling to be the QB1 pretty much anytime he walks out onto the field.
Yeah, and he's got the rushing ability upside too, so it's like you can never scratch him off. Now, again, the Saints have him in a defense to attack. Like, the strength of schedule for the Saints has gone downhill, where it's like there are some concerns about that, but I think Breeze is a solid tournament play this week. There's natural touchdown regression coming there. Like, it's naturally going to come. Like, the Saints have scored. Mark Ingram has scored 7 touchdowns. I think it's on his last 102 carries. like you'd have to go. There's only 1 year in his career where he scored more than 7 touchdowns, and he scored I think 9 touchdowns that year, and it was like 224 carries. Like this offense has always been potent. That's not the problem. The offensive line's blocking well. Drew Brees' completion percentage is at a career high. His yards per attempt is up. His depth of target is still solid. And everybody that's out there listening and saying, oh, it's because he's targeting running backs. He has always targeted running backs. Like, I don't know. This is nothing new. But Drew Brees, the only thing down is his touchdown percentage, whereas the rushing, those two are going to flip at some point. The Redskins have allowed, it's at least 23 points to 4 of the last 6 quarterbacks that played. I know one of them, I think, was Kevin Hogan. That I can't remember who it was, but they've been a great matchup for quarterbacks recently. Drew Brees, again, there's just so much to like. If you want to play Kamara, you could pair Brees with Kamara, and that you'll be just fine. But I think that Brees is a solid pivot off of Mark Ingram.
Yeah, and I think this is a game that if you're looking for a game to stack sort of off of the Giants game and the Patriots game, this is certainly one that's just going completely unnoticed. I still like if I was narrowing down to 3 or 4 quarterbacks, Brees would not make my list. And that's generally what I do every week, is just narrow down as tightly on quarterback as I can. I just I feel like it's like an upside down season, and Drew Brees and Alex Smith have like switched places, but I want 50 attempt Brees back, and I don't think I'm getting it this week. But if we do get it, I don't want to miss it, but I probably will.
Well, if you want to play, if you play Brees, you want to game stack it, man. Like seriously,
you have to.
Yeah, because like get Thompson in there, get Crowder in there, and that's fine because like it all fits together, right?
Yeah. And I think the Saints could run all over the Redskins, and this game could still hit the over.
Correct. Yeah. Like their run game is ridiculous. Willie Snead, dude.
I was gonna ask you. I mean, if he finally gets like his full complement.
He finally passed Coleman. He played 36 snaps last week compared to Coleman's 29, and it's been trending in that direction where it's like the anti-James White, where James White is trending towards like inactive. Willie Snead is trending towards like his full complement, and nobody's going to play him.
Yeah, and this is the matchup. I mean, the Redskins are very good on the outside. Breland and Norman obviously are both playing really, really well. And they stink in the slot. And it seems like Kendall Fuller's playing well, but it seems like every week you're just able to just match up your slot wide receivers on just linebackers against the Redskins, and it keeps happening, and they keep getting crushed.
They have issues with tight ends too. I don't think we're going to bet on Kobe Fleener. That's why I'm like more towards Willie Snead. Fleener's not playing the snaps either. Like he's in the teens in terms of snaps. Kobe Fleener is for the past like month. So I think Willie Snead, like I said, if he played 36 snaps last week and he's been trending up, that's like a like legitimately 1% owned option. Like if you're in a top heavy tournament where like it's like this, only the top few get paid out. Like I think Willie Snead is someone you could toss in with Brees. And hope for the best.
I agree. I'm with you. I think Michael Thomas is a fine play. I still just not stoked on wide receivers on the outside against the Saints, but or against the Redskins. But he'll play some on the inside. They'll move him around. I think he's like a safe floor play. He showed a little bit of a ceiling last week. I wouldn't fault you for playing him, but I wouldn't prefer him to Mike Evans by any means.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I wouldn't prefer him to Evans. I think Thomas is a solid play. There's going to be one of those weeks where he has 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. It's going to happen. So the Redskins, like if they move into the slot more often, like let's say that the Saints realize that there's mismatches all over the field. If they slide him into the slot, if they do that, Michael Thomas could have one of those games. So it's like you always want to have exposure to Brees' number 1 option. So Thomas isn't a bad play at all, but I would definitely have heavier exposure to Mike Evans.
Yep. All right, let's move on to the Bills of the Chargers, which is my favorite defensive play of the slate. I feel like I'm going to have a lot of the Chargers, and unhealthy for my blood pressure and my soul amount of Melvin Gordon. And then I'm not going to play anyone else, I don't think, from this game.
Yeah. Melvin Gordon, so I'm never a Melvin Gordon fan either. So I'm sorry to those out there who are Melvin Gordon truthers, because I don't know, it's just on a per play production basis, like his efficiency isn't great, but he does.
At him right here.
But he does. But the thing is, he does get carries where it matters, where we think it matters, and that's the goal line, right? And
Yep.
Austin Eckler, if you see the box score and you look at it and you're just like, oh my God, I got to worry about Austin Eckler now. If you go and look at it, Melvin Gordon played twice the snaps that he did, and Eckler's touchdowns last week were a fluke. Like if you watch him, if you go back and see that game, the touchdowns were both along the sideline, and like he should have been pushed out of bounds, he should have been tackled, and it was just like a weird. It was almost like Jacksonville just gave him the touchdowns. Like there's no other way to describe it. And he's been relatively in that snap area for the last couple weeks, so it's nothing like crazy. This is a nut, dude. In the last 3 games, the Bills have allowed 4 top 6 running backs.
Yep.
The last 3 games, 4 top 6 running backs. Like that's redonk.
And it's not like Eckler is going to come in and get like the early down carries.
No.
The concern with Eckler is that Melvin Gordon is losing pass game snaps to him or hurry up snaps to him. And I don't foresee
this
Nathan
game going that way.
Peterman led Buffalo Bills causing that.
Right. And Rivers is going to be active. Like that was my only concern is that if Rivers didn't get through the concussion protocol, but being he did, like Melvin Gordon is such a good play. And I was like, I want to own so much, but I never, it's like a Jay Cutler of running backs. I never want to put all my trust in Melvin Gordon.
I am going to have a lot of money on Melvin Gordon if it makes you feel any better.
I'm going to have him in some lineups as well, man. Like the matchup is just too good.
Yep.
Too good.
I'm with you. He will probably be, so I play like a main team that goes into playing cash. I play in single entry GPPs, 3 max, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
He's likely going to end up on it, and it terrifies me, but I'm probably not going to move away from it.
I don't think you need to.
Yeah. Okay. I don't think there's much more from that game. Let's move on to the Bengals at the Broncos. I might want the Broncos defense. Other than that, I don't think I want a single player from this game. I drew an X on it when I did my initial notes on Tuesday this week. I mean, do you want anyone in this game? It's just like brutal.
Yeah, it is brutal. I like Denver's defense as well. And people are going to look at them and say they're 3,800, and then they see Jacksonville at 4,000. It's easy to go up to Jacksonville. But I think they're a good pivot play. Like you should be counting on at least 5 sacks in that game. And Andy Dalton, he might be carried out in a body bag. But Adam Jones is not going to be active, I heard, for the Bengals. And that's big news for Demaryius Thomas, because he's usually the one that covers Demaryius Thomas. And Demaryius Thomas, to be fair, has done pretty well in the past against the Bengals. So it's not like that was a terrifying match to begin with. He scored 2 touchdowns the last 2 weeks. Like, who would have thought? Like, he goes 13 weeks without a touchdown, and all he needs is Brock Osweiler to come back, and he scores touchdowns again.
Do you have concerns, though, that both those touchdowns came in blowout games?
Oh, yeah.
That's definitely my concern.
It's definitely a concern, but with the way that their run game is not working, they don't want it to work. Like that's basically what it comes down to. Because CJ Anderson, whenever they give him the ball, he plays well, but they just don't want to give him the ball more than 10 times. So they're going to continue to struggle. So yeah, that's definitely a concern. Like I don't. That's the thing is like Demaryius Thomas is like a guy that you play in cash and you don't play in tournaments. Yeah. So knowing that, you're right. I mean, Demaryius Thomas, I'm not playing him in my cash lineup.
Yeah, it's just tough for me. Like if the Denver defense dominates the Bengals, which I sort of feel like they will, field position will be good. It's not like I have a hard time seeing Sanders or Demaryius going for 100 yards. And I have a hard time seeing Osweiler throwing for like multiple touchdown passes. I think they would be happy to kick field goals and call it a day. I played DT and Sanders against the Patriots. But it just doesn't feel like the right spot to me, I guess.
That's fair enough. I can understand that.
Yeah. Other than that, is there really anyone? I don't think so.
Not really.
All right. Patriots Raiders game.
Sorry, wait. Tyler Kroft. Tyler Kroft's a good play. Sorry, I want to mention that.
No, yeah, that's true. I mean, I think I prefer CJ Fedorowicz to Tyler Kroft by a little bit, but I probably prefer Tyler Kroft to Mercedes Lewis.
That's fair. That's fair.
I don't know. They're all close.
Yeah. So there's been 9 games that the Broncos have played. 5 tight ends have totaled 73 or more yards, and then 3 others have scored a touchdown. So you're essentially looking at 73 yards or a touchdown in 8 of 9 games. So it's it's a matchup to target for sure. Croft has seen an average of just under 5 targets per game since taking over as a starter. So
Yeah.
if you're looking to go cheap at tight end, it's just one of those options you should definitely consider.
I just think that think Harwitz, I think we have like a 10, 11, 12 target type ceiling with Patrick Peterson on Hopkins.
Yeah.
I don't think Croft has that target ceiling, but I do think he probably has more touchdown
upside. Yeah, I don't know if Savage throws a touchdown against Arizona.
Probably not. Although I didn't think he was like ever going to throw a touchdown this season, and here we are.
Yeah, we are. I mean, it took like 100. I think he got to like 120 attempts before he threw a touchdown in his NFL career, but we did get there.
Yeah. And then so the next game we got the Patriots at the Raiders. I expected this game to be more popular than it seems to be. It opened at a 50-point total, and it has like flown up to 54, 55 in some spots.
Wow.
The line is also moving towards the Patriots. The Raiders have played in Mexico before, so I don't think this is necessarily. I'm not. There's a lot of concern, I think, about the altitude. I'm not really that concerned about the Raiders. They were fine last time, and the Patriots defense. People are saying that they are better. They've improved, yada yada, and I don't think that's true. They're still allowing, I think, 8.1 yards per attempt, and they have faced an easy schedule, average to easy schedule over the last 4 or 5 weeks. They still got lit up by Josh McCown. Yes, they're using Gilmore more in like press man coverage. Maybe that limits one of the 2 wide receivers, but I still think Carr could have a huge game against the Patriots. And I think Brady could have a huge game against the Raiders. And I'm fine having tons of exposure to this game. I have a hard time seeing it let down. What do you think?
Well, so Brady and Alex Smith were the 2 quarterbacks I was debating on my cash team because I had cash to spend. I went to Brady, and the reason I'm going to Brady is because there's risk with Alex Smith that Kareem Hunt runs for 2 touchdowns in the first half, and they sit on the ball. That Alex Smith, he doesn't have a Giants offense to contend with, whereas the Patriots defense is going to allow points to the Raiders. It's going to happen. Like you mentioned it, like Stephon Gilmore hasn't been the player that I think that they expected to get. And even going back to Buffalo, it's not like Stephon Gilmore can't allow a big game. He can. And it happens from time to time. Malcolm Butler got walked all over the field by Emmanuel Sanders last week. So whichever cornerback they decide to put on Amari Cooper, Michael Crabtree, I have faith that those guys can win those matchups. So Derek Carr, great tournament play. You never want to trust him in cash because Derek Carr has been like extremely hit or miss, but you hit it on the head. The Patriots have allowed at least 7.1 yards per attempt to all but 1 quarterback, and that 1 quarterback was Brock Osweiler, so I don't think we really want to take too much from that. Losing Dante Hightower was massive for their defense, for not only their run defense, but their pass. Shea McClellan, he was one of their pass rushing specialists. He's out for the year, so I'm with you, Johnny. I don't think this Patriots defense is one to fear. Even going back to last year, I know Barrett was talking about, I want to say that the Patriots weren't as good as defense as people thought last year. It's that their strength of schedule was just so easy that it was really good. But there's really not a whole lot to like about either of them. Like Brady, the concern is that the run game is playing extremely well. And if Deion Lewis and Rex Burkhead can rush a few touchdowns, that takes off the ceiling.
Dude,
but
if Mike Gillislee is active, I'm just going to tilt.
I swear to God, if Mike Gillislee is active, you need to consider having him in like a tournament lineup or 2. I swear to God. And it's the dumbest thing. I hear you, but it's like legit concern. Why have him active after having him inactive? And there's so many questions about the inactives. But this game's afternoon, so you got to pay attention to it.
Yeah.
But Derek Carr is so interesting. He's someone that over the first 6 weeks, he didn't throw the ball more than 32 times. But over the last 3 games, he's had 49 attempts. He's had 52 attempts. Like Marshawn Lynch hasn't panned out to be the running back I think that they wanted. Their offensive line hasn't run blocked the way they wanted.
And even against Miami, like he lit them up, and Lynch lucked into 2 touchdowns.
Yeah,
because Miami just gave up.
Miami's just not very good too. But yeah, like you mentioned it. They played in Mexico last year. Derek Carr last year in Mexico, he threw the ball just 31 times for 295 yards, 3 touchdowns. Amari Cooper had a decent game there. Honestly, I think it's off the wall and people won't consider it, but I think you could try a lineup with Derek Carr, Amari, and Michael Crabtree. I don't think you need to do that, but it's like going like all in on that passing attack because it's very likely that they have to throw the ball a ton. The running backs, like I know everybody's on Burkhead, and I think it's a smart play. He's only 3,600. It's like a misprice, but Deion Lewis is also mispriced too at 4,200, right?
Yeah. I'm like trying to find ways to talk myself out of Rex Burkhead. And I there was, but then if you don't have Rex Burkhead in your lineups and James White ends up being the one who is inactive, you're dead.
It's true.
Over. So I mean the snaps are definitely trending up for Burkhead. James White got benched for a messed up pass protection. He got Brady sacked early last week, and then he didn't come back in the game until like the end of the game when he scored that touchdown. I think he played like 11 snaps.
Yep, that's all he played.
So it's like, I mean, it's hoodie shenanigans. I don't know if James White is being phased out or James White got benched for that pass protection concern, and then he plays his normal snaps, and Rex Burkhead is still the third running back this week, but he's cheap enough that if he's going to be 60% owned in cash games, you can't not use him.
Right. Well, James White, we don't know what his normal snap count is anymore. This actually goes back to week 4 for James White. His snap count's 43, 35, 29, 23, 20, and then 11. So they've been trending towards inactive. Like he's been being phased out for whatever reasons. I don't think he's played bad, but it's just the reason that you said you're looking for reasons not to play Rex Burkhead. Patriots. I mean, that's it. Like that's the only thing I can come up with. And again, at 3,600, it's not like you're taking on massive risk to play a Patriots running back. So
yeah. I the more I see, the more I realize he's going to be 50% or more owned in cash games.
Yeah.
At that point, you really can't not use him. I still think Bilal Powell was a better play last week than Rex Burkhead is this week, and we saw that went south. So you never know when a running back is splitting time with another running back, what's going to happen.
Yeah, or for sure.
In New England's case, 2 other running backs.
Pay attention to the inactive list, because that'll tell you a lot. If Gillislee's inactive, I feel so good about using Burkhead.
Yeah, because yeah, or White. I mean, either way, if all 4 are active, then who the hell knows?
Run for the hills.
Yeah, but yeah, I think Brandon Cooks is also another. Play. He saw 11 targets against the Broncos, and it was clear that the Patriots were utilizing the running backs and the tight ends in the passing game. I think wide receivers only saw 50% of the targets in that game, just about 50%. 11 of them to Brandon Cooks. I think this is where it will swing more to wide receiver targets, although they only have Cooks and Amendola. That's sort of it. Philip Dorsett is a nobody. I think we could see Cooks, see 10 to 15 targets. And if he does, he get a huge game.
Yep. I couldn't agree more. There's been no wide receiver to see more than 10 targets against the Raiders, but they've already allowed 200-yard games. And honestly, if you look at, if you look at the numbers, they rank in the top half of the league against fantasy wide receivers, but they've only seen 17.3 targets per game. Their opposing wide receivers have against them. And so looking at Chris Hogan's already been ruled out. Well, that's massive. David Amerson's not going to play. He was bad to begin with. So talking about his backup, who's going to come in to cover, obviously a downgrade. Gary Conley is out for the year. So it's just like, there's so much going on. The Raiders are terrible down the field. Like they can't stop the long pass. They're terrible up the middle, like the seam. That's why Rob Gronkowski is like my favorite play on the board, like as a tight end. And I know everybody's going to play Kelsey, and I'm not going to fault anybody for playing Kelsey. It's a nut spot, but I still think that Gronk is my favorite tight end on the slate, just because there's been 4 tight ends who have finished top 5 against the Raiders, and their names are Julius Thomas, AJ Derby, Vernon Davis, and I'm forgetting the other one for whatever reason. They've really struggled against the tight end position, and the competition hasn't even been great. Gronk is in such a good spot. Again, you're going to get Gronk in a good spot at lower ownership than he would typically be, just because of how good of a play Travis Kelce is, just because of how good Zach Ertz has been this year. There's so many things around this where Gronk is going to be a tad under-owned for how good his matchup is.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like one of Cooks or Gronk is going to have just like a massive, massive game.
Yep.
It's got to be one of the two.
For sure.
And I think, both have 30, 40 point upside.
Yeah. No, yes. And that's what I'm saying. Gronk probably has a higher ceiling than Travis Kelce this week.
Yes, but I think Travis Kelce is a much more bankable,
safer. Correct.
Yep.
I think he's a better cash game option if you want to go high, and if you want to spend up a tight end cash, I think Kelsey's the way to go. But if you're in tournaments, I would actually rather have more Gronkowski exposure, because I think Kelsey's going to be so highly owned, so highly, like, and for good reason. But I just think that Gronk has a higher ceiling.
Yep. I mean, he has more multi. If I had to say, can Kelce have 3 touchdowns?
No,
probably not, but easily could.
Yes, 100%.
Yep. I think that is about it. Do you have my favorite defense is the Chargers? Is there another defense that you like more than the Chargers? If not, we'll call it.
I mean, Jacksonville, if you want to pay, obviously, that just seems like it's too dumb not to. Like, the weather's supposed to be horrible. Like, the Browns can't pass the ball. They can't run I mean, I know Crowell has actually played better recently, but Marcel Darius, adding him to the Jacksonville defense has helped the run defense a little bit. So, there's really no reason to dislike Jacksonville, but if you're looking for a contrarian play, I think we talked about it. The Broncos, I think, are a really solid play at 3,800, and you'll get them at lower ownership with recency bias and all that fun stuff. But yeah, the Chargers they're kind of a no-brainer at 3,000.
Yep, I would agree. All right. I guess that is it for this slate. Make sure you find Mike on Twitter at Mike Taglieri, Tagliere NFL. Make sure you find him on Fantasy Pros. Make sure you check out Fanshare Sports. They will soon be a paid website, so make sure you check them out when they're still free, and when they are paid, continue to follow with their tags, because we don't have any other way to gauge ownership. And other than that, that is it. Thanks for coming on, Mike, and we're out.